The history of FPS esports has long been documented through the rise of the arena shooter with games like Midi Maze, Wolfenstein, Quake, Unreal Engine, all of their respective clones, and the never-ending pursuit to be called the best player.
It's overtime! Done it! How have they done that?
In the late 90s and early 2000s, consoles would revolutionize how we see gaming in the modern era. With wider accessibility to consumers and the rise of online play.
Alright, first of all,
Where'd you play?
John Igor, Leone,
Shit.
and J
How
Bob,
many
and I'm
times do
bad
I
how
have
to
to
shake.
tell you?
With icons from Microsoft, Activision, and Valve taking center stage to form the modern FPS shooters and the esports scene that would develop around them. This is the history of FPS esports Part 2. While the consoles like the Nintendo 64 and the Sega Genesis were widely adopted in the gaming world, this gave opportunity for companies like Microsoft and Sony to expand their profits into the ever-growing gaming market. This is when we were introduced to the original Xbox from Microsoft and the PlayStation 2 from Sony. And while Sony had the upper hand due to the console already being a household name, Microsoft would come out swinging, equalizing the competition thanks to the Xbox launch title developed by a relatively unknown yet rapidly growing team in Bellevue, Washington, Bungie, with their game titled Halo Combat Evolved. Halo not only had a gripping campaign that could only be experienced on Xbox, but what really set it apart was its multiplayer. The Halo franchise revitalized the FPS scene with a whole new take on the arena shooter. With the same floaty physics as its predecessors, the release is cited as being the first to inject some realistic gunplay, even in its sci-fi settings. The difference they implemented from the previous takes on the genre was the ability to give players the choice what weapons they wanted to start with, rather than finding power-ups and upgrade weapons in different parts of the map. With this change being so popular that it introduced a loadout mechanic that is now fundamental in FPS. Over the next 2 decades, Halo would become as iconic as Zelda or Mario, with people of all ages finding something to love about Halo, whether it was the campaign or the multiplayer. The part that would become an esport for Halo would be the Slayer Deathmatch or Capture the Flag, which heavily resembles games like Quake and Unreal, but included a bigger variety of maps and equipment, enhancing the most critical part of arena shooters. These innovations on the genre netted Halo over 81 million copies since its first release, and started an esports scene that would last to this day and be featured in massive tournaments like MLGs and Halo's own World Championships. While the game itself always outshined the esports scene around it, the game was mastered by players like Ogre 2 and Lethal, making a career out of these games through its sequels. With Halo's rise, it gave leeway to a futuristic and floaty arena shooter, but the market wanted something that was more realistic and boots on the ground. A take on the FPS arena shooter, taking the realism Halo teased, and Infinity Ward would answer all of those calls, and on October 29, 2003, they would release Call of Duty.
Get your head down! Everybody move! Get moving! MG-42, your way
In 2003, 3 years after Halo first hit the shelves, the first installment of Call of Duty would sweep the gaming world, starting what would become the new wave of arena shooters, something that resembled aspects of the arena shooter of old but provided their own twist on the deathmatch format in esports. These two gaming franchises over the next decade would fight for the #1 spot as the most recognizable FPS game in the world, redefining the genre in the process as their respective esports started to take off, with future iterations of COD specifically gaining a devoted and prospering esports scene. That can still be seen and followed today with the most recent version of the game. But these new wave arena shooters weren't always just pushing the genre and the FPS esports scene forward. Over time, these games would become stale in the future iterations, just like the franchises that would inspire their creations, leading many to leave these games in just like what happened with Quake and Unreal Tournament before it. While they are still supporting esports scenes, with COD seeing many recognizable esports orgs fielding rosters, after the mid-2010s, their FPS rivalry could never reach the same heights as they experienced after the decline of Quake. For Call of Duty, Activision has pushed its two development studios, Infinity Ward and Treyarch, to make Call of Duty a almost yearly release. And for Halo, when Bungie handed over the development of Halo to Microsoft, the new developers 343 Industries could never find a winning formula, not only for its campaign, but also for its multiplayer. While we see some of the old arena shooter elements in Halo and the COD franchise and in their respective esports, some FPS fans went a different route. Some wanted fast-paced gunplay and more focused on movement and pure game sense, and others wanted realism and team-focused shooters.
Yeah, we need backup now! Now, Maintain control!
While most nowadays have heard of the Counter Strike series through its 1.6 version or Global Offensive, Valve first put CS on the FPS Esports map by sponsoring a $100,000 tournament in 2000, which was one of the largest prize pools in FPS history. And just like Red Annihilation, it caught the eye of many gamers, resulting in the birth of their esports scene. From there, a new FPS subgenre was truly formed, the tactical shooter. Unlike the arena shooters before it, tactical shooters focused more on strategies and precision aim. Unlike Halo or Call of Duty, which required multiple bullets to put a target down, tactical shooters leveled the field and allowed for the possibility of a single bullet or a headshot to completely change the trajectory of a round or the match. This drive for more realism and precision in the first-person shooter only grew alongside the rise of the new wave of arena shooters during the console wars. And Counter-Strike stayed out of this rivalry, building a community on PC away from consoles, which helped the series publisher Valve create one of the most profitable online stores with Steam. But the game that would turn up the hype for this subgenre of the FPS would come in 2012 with Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Watch out!
This is where the esport would explode, with the game becoming a must-watch for esports fans, thanks to the insane atmosphere and the world-class casting that would give the FPS esports scene the sort of cinematic respect that no FPS tournament had given it before.
Garrett is going to be waiting. Hiko charges in, doesn't check.
Oh, what?
Oh my god! Inhuman reactions!
More utility to work with. Here he comes once again. The first base is a Dren. He's going to hit the ground there as Cold. Oh! What? A jumping double from Cold! What is going on right now? How does he do this? Cold has saved Luminosity with the all play. Unthinkable scenes there on the B
Has to
apartment.
feel a little bit going out middle of the air to take down Alex, and now they're pushing. Oh, you've got to be kidding me! He takes every single one from nothing to the AWP.
Decade-long careers are forged in this game, and its biggest S-tier tournaments would be attended by stadiums full of people, feeling more like traditional sporting events than FPS games. With some of our favorite esports moments here at Hidden Levels coming from this specific iteration of the game. Blizzard Entertainment had also partaken in the world of esports with its legendary RTS title, StarCraft, which had its own massive esport in Korea. With the success of World of Warcraft, they wanted to create something new for players, and at BlizzCon 2014, they would announce the development of
We're about to
Overwatch.
get a glimpse into the future. So my friends, get a load of this. We hope you love it like we do. I'll see you on the other side.
Conflict. As the world teetered on the brink of anarchy, a new hope arose. An elite international task force charged with ending the war and restoring liberty to all nations. Overwatch.
and in 2016 it would release to critical acclaim, selling 50 million copies. Overwatch stood out in the market for its innovation on the hero shooter, and its welcoming aesthetics made it stand out from the hyper-realism franchises like Call of Duty, Halo, and Counter Strike were going for. It was the biggest release in the FPS market, and quickly the esports scene would be born, with Blizzard starting Overwatch.
To go undefeated.
That's correct. They were undefeated. However, the match they did play against San Francisco Shock has been a lot closer.
And selling franchise slots to investors and esports organizations, where even football team owners wanted a slice of the market that Overwatch had generated. Unfortunately, the reality is that Overwatch League had bitten more than it could chew, and the International League and high expenditures alongside the pandemic and the numerous incidents at Activision Blizzard would lead to its demise. Back in the tactical shooter scene, it seemed like Valve and CSGO would hold on to its monopoly on the tactical shooter. With the release of the Arms Deal update, it propelled the popularity of CSGO. Not only for its skins, but their value in the secondary market, and it helped the esports scene thrive. After years went by, Valve slowed down on the updates for CSGO, and players started to become frustrated with cheaters, expensive skins, online gambling, and the lack of innovation, and an outdated source engine. Riot, the developers behind League of Legends, seeing the success of CSGO and an opening in the stranglehold Valve had, wanted to enter the tactical shooter genre, and gave it their own twist. And in 2020, we would get the release of Valorant.
Phoenix, please tell me you have the package.
I would if somebody was a little less aggressive. Hey, stop! I said stop! I got this.
미안해서 어쩌나?
Valorant combined the tactical shooter mechanics of CSGO and borrowed the hero shooter abilities of Overwatch to give the game a new perspective on the FPS. 2021 is where esports for Valorant would take off. The esport became a much more global scene than anyone had expected, as every region and country had a chance to produce a world-class player or team. With the esports structure being built and strengthened with only a few years of launch, as audiences were drawn to the precision that CS had always brought, with the addition of characters and unique abilities, causing the game to be viewed much more dynamically and unpredictable than Counter Strike.
Making sure that nobody can really take it. Adjustments. Round 3. Junkible! Goodness me, man! What is that finish?
Drawing a whole new generation and audience to the FPS esports scene that were dissuaded by Counter Strike's gritty and realistic aesthetics. Valorant would go through several icons through their history. In 2021, we got the rise of Tens and Sentinels. 2022 would give us EA's dominance and Optic Gaming vs Loud. 2023 was the Fnatic Reign of Terror and Evil Genius's underdog story. And 2024 would crown China's own Kang and EDG as its champions, with 2025 still developing at the time of recording. Now, Valorant has become a mainstay in the scene, with the most recent World Championship seeing over 9.1 million people watching the Grand Final, with massive celebrities both performing at the show as well as attending to see the matches. But Valve and CS couldn't be outdone, and just a few years after Valorant's release, Valve released the newest iteration of Counter Strike, with CS2, just under 12 years after CSGO launched. While the game hasn't changed much, it did revitalize some interest in the esport, with new players like Bonk taking over from old legends, and building history in the new version of the game, drawing bigger crowds than CSGO. And with that, we're about caught up with the history of FPS. From the NASA project to global stages, for millions to watch. This topic is a massive one, and we know we weren't able to cover every step of the FPS's history, such as Rainbow Six Siege or other modern battle royales. We plan to go on even more depth on those stories and games in the future, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out. And put in the comments if there are any other FPS esports and games we missed. In no time, we should have a video for that. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.